Bostwick, and I am reading at the Hickory Bookshop, and I've chosen tonight a selection from The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. I chose this book because I love it. Millions of people have loved it, and I was shocked to find out that it was, in fact, one of the most challenged books between the years 1999 and 2009, though it has been around since it was published in 1885. So that's why. Now I have to find my spot. I've chosen a selection where Huckleberry Finn and Jim have kind of escaped, and they've been on the river, as probably most of you know. And Huckleberry Finn is suffering a crisis of conscience because, of course, Jim is at that time property, and he is considered sort of stolen goods. And so Huckleberry Finn has been considering his part in this theft. That was my fix, exactly. The more I studied about this, the more my conscience went to grinding me, and the more the wicked and low down and ornery I got to feeling. And at last, when it hit me, all of a sudden, that here was the plain hand of Providence slapping me in the face and letting me know my wickedness was being watched all the time from up there in heaven, whilst I was stealing a poor old woman's nigger that had never done me no harm, and now was showing me there's one that's always on the lookout, and ain't going to allow no such miserable doings to go only just so far and no further. I almost dropped in my tracks, I was so scared. Well, I tried the best I could to kind of soften it up for myself, saying I was brung up wicked, and so I weren't so much to blame, but something inside me kept saying, well, there was the Sunday school, you could have gone to it, and if you'd have done it, and they'd have learnt you there, that people that acts as I've been acting about that nigger goes to everlasting fire. It made me shiver. And I just about made up my mind to pray and see if I could quit being the kind of a boy I was and to be better. So I kneeled down, but the words wouldn't come. Why would they? It weren't no use to try and hide it from him, nor from me neither. I know very well why they wouldn't come. It was because my heart weren't right. It was because I weren't square. It was because I was playing double. I was letting on to be ready to give up sin, but away inside of me, I was holding on to the biggest one of all. I was trying to make my mouth say I would do the right thing and the clean thing and go and write that nigger's owner and tell her where he was, but deep down inside me, I knowed it was a lie, and he knowed it. You can't pray a lie. I found that out. So I was full of trouble, full as I could be, and didn't know what to do. At last, I had an idea. I says, I'll go and write the letter and then see if I can pray. Why, it was astonishing the way I felt light as a feather right straight off, and my troubles all gone. So I got a piece of paper and a pencil, all glad and excited, and I sat down and I wrote, Miss Watson, your runaway nigger Jim is down here 2 miles below Pikesville, and Mr. Phelps has got him, and he will be glad to give him up for the reward if you send. Huck Finn. I felt so good and all washed clean of sin for the first time I had ever felt so good in my life, and I knowed I could pray now. But I didn't do it straight off, but laid the paper down and sat there thinking about how good it was that all this had happened, and so how near I had come to being lost and going to hell. And then I went on thinking. And I got to thinking over our trip down the river, and I see Jim before me all the time, in the day and in the nighttime, and sometimes in the moonlight, sometimes storms, and we are floating along, talking and singing and laughing. But somehow I couldn't seem to strike no place to harden me against him. But only the other kind. I'd see him standing my watch on top of his'n, instead of calling me so I could go on sleeping, and see him how glad he was when I came back out of the fog, and when I come to him again in the swamp, up there where the feud was, and such like times, and he would always call me honey and pet me and do everything he could think love for me, and how good he always was. And the last I struck at the time, I saved him by telling the men we had the smallpox aboard, and how he was so grateful, and said that I was the best friend old Jim had ever had in the world, and the only one he's got now. And then I happened to look around and see that paper. It was a close place. I took it up, and I held it in my hand, and I was a-trembling, because I got to decide forever betwixt two things, and I knowed it. I studied a minute, sort of holding my breath, and then I says to myself, all right then, I'll go to hell. And I tore it up.